Hello everyone, welcome to the CloudLearn AWS Zero to Hero series. This is a day 9 video. In this video, we are going to learn about Elastic Block Store or Elastic Block Storage. It is also known as EBS. What is this EBS or what exactly this Elastic Block Store is? So in the last video, we have seen the EC2 concept, right? What is the EC2 concept? By using the EC2, we can create an instance, right? It can be a Windows or Linux, in which you will get the required number of CPUs, RAM, storage, and then the operating system, in which you can install whatever you want and all the things. Now, we are going to focus on this particular storage. So storage is a kind of a hard disk, right? We use a term called hard disk for your laptops. Every machine requires a storage. Without a storage, without a storage, you can't use that particular machine because without a storage, you cannot install the operating system. Without an operating system, you can't communicate with the hardware. So storage is an important thing. And Amazon is providing the storage using a service called Elastic Block Store. Elastic Block Store. And this in general, there are different types of storages available, like block-based storage, object-based storage, network-based storage, and so on. And this EBS is the block-based storage. This EBS is block-based storage. And this block-based storage is the storage for your EC2 instances. And this EBS provide you the required amount of storage, and that is called as a volume. And that is called as a volume. So whenever you purchase a hard disk, we call it as a hard disk, 100 GB hard disk, 500 GB disk, 1000 GB disk, and so on, right? So on Amazon, technically, we will call that storage size or storage drive as a volume. And we have a different types of volumes, different types of storages available. I think you might know, right? Whenever you want to purchase a hard disk in the market, what exactly you consider? Is it like an SSD hard drive or a HDD, regular hard disk, or the old version called a magnetic drives, SSD and HDD, right? And this EBS is also providing you SSD as well as the HDD. SSD is a more performance in terms of input and output operations per second and all. Okay, coming to the volume, there are two types of volumes available for every EC2 instance. For every EC2 instance, there are two types of volumes available. One is the root volume, and the second one is EBS volume, or we can call it as an additional volume. What is the root volume? Root volume is, I can say, the C drive, means the volume in which the operating system is getting installed is called as the root volume. EBS volume is all other additional volumes like a D drive, E drive, F drive. These all are known as a additional EBS volumes. And so we created an EC2 instance. And if you terminate the EC2 instance, terminate means delete. By default, the root volume will be deleted. No need to delete it manually. But the EBS volumes, the additional volumes which we attach to the EC2 instance, we have to delete them manually. Let us say for this EC2 instance, so here we created one EC2 instance. We got the CPU, we got the RAM, and we got the root volume of, let us say, 30 GB. And I created additional 10 GB of additional EBS volume. This I call it as a root volume, and this I call it as a EBS volume. This is a root and there is a EBS. So whenever You delete this EC2 instance, CPUs will be deleted, RAM will be taken back by Amazon, the root volume of the 30 GB will be automatically deleted. But this 10 GB volume still exists in your AWS account, which means Amazon will consider that you are still using 10 GB of a storage, and that will be charged. And whatever the data you have stored on this 10 GB volume will be exist until you delete that EBS volume. Okay, right. Then these volumes, Amazon is providing these EBS volumes, I can say different types of EBS volumes for a different use cases. Under the EBS, we have different types of EBS volumes. On what basis? Based on the use cases. Let me list out those types. Then we can discuss about each and every volume in detail. So first type is general purpose SSD. First one is general purpose SSD, in which we have a two subcategories. One is a GP2 and the second one is a GP3. Then the next one, provisioned IOPS SSD. The next one is provisioned IOPS SSD, in which we have again two categories. One is IO1 and the second one is IO2. I will explain about each and everything in detail, no need to worry. The third one is cold HDD. Technically, we can call it as SC1. Let me use a different color for highlight. And then, yeah, throughput optimized HDD. This is known as ST1. And finally, we have a magnetic. This is also known as standard. And this is old generation, or I can say previous generation, which is not recommended because you don't get much performance. So these are the five types of EBS volumes, including the subtypes. There are total seven. Okay, first thing, general purpose SSD. What is a general purpose SSD? The use case of the general purpose SSD is to get a balanced, what we call that, how can I say, in general, we can use the general purpose SSD. There are, I mean, the way how to create, how to use, everything is going to be the same. The technical performance is different. The technical performance is different. I will explain. So out of all these, these are SSD type of a hard disk. What is a SSD? Solid state drive. Solid state drive. The remaining are a regular HDD. What is the difference between these SSD and HDDs are? In SSD, the dominant performance is IOPS, means input and output operations per second. And in the regular HDD, the dominant performance, the performance is a throughput. Throughput means I can say MB per second. Example. For example, if you want to install a database software, a database on an EC2 instance, generally the database has required the performance in terms of IOPS, input and output operations per second. Let us say you are using that particular database to store the data of your online store like Amazon.in, Flipkart, right? So per second there are 1,000 transactions are happening, which means per second 1,000 records to be written onto the storage. In such cases, your hard disk must support minimum 1,000 input and output operations per second, right? In such scenarios, you must go for SSD. Whereas a throughput MB per second. What is the MB per second? How much data can be transferred per second, right? 1 MB per second means in a given second, 1 MB data can be transferred, copied. So if you are using a server for data analytics to copy the data, or a file server where the users can download some data or upload some data, in such cases, you have to use the HDD type. Obviously, the SSDs are costlier and HDDs are smaller ones. I mean, the cheaper ones. Okay, now let me give a few points, whatever we have covered. EBS provides block-based storage for your EC2 instances, and it provides secure block-based storage in terms of volumes. In terms of volumes, if let us say 30 GB storage drive, that is called as volume, and EBS can provide the volumes either HDD or SSD as per our requirement. As per our requirement. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, we have two types of volumes available, right? Two types of volumes, not the categories, two types of volumes. The first one is root volume. The first one is the root volume. Root volume is the volume in which the operating system installed. Example C drive. Example C drive. Then the EBS volume, all other additional volumes like a C drive, except the C drive, D drive, E drive, and all. And let us write down a note points, few note points. Root volume will be deleted automatically along with the EC2 instance termination. These all are like kind of interview questions or certification point of view questions. So whatever the points we discuss, that you have to check practically, like create one EC2 instance, attach an additional volume, right? Terminate the EC2 instance, and you should observe the root volume got deleted automatically, and the EBS volumes we have to delete. Okay, right. So now let's go back to the EBS volume types. EBS offers different types of volumes for different use cases. The first one is general purpose SSD, in which we have a two types, GP2, and the second one GP3. And then provisioned IOPS SSD, in which we have IO1, IO2. The IO1, IO2, these are like technical labels, like for identification purpose. Then the cold HDD, which is known as SSC1. Then throughput optimized HDD, which is known as ST1. And finally, magnetic, which is also known as a standard, which is a previous generation type. Okay, right. And what is the difference between the SSD and HDD? What is the difference between the SSD and HDD? SSD hard disks will have the dominance performance of IOPS, whereas the HDD's dominance performance will be in a throughput. Okay, let us talk about each and every volume, EBS volume type. The first, let us talk about general purpose SSD GP2. Okay, so let me open a documentation page, EBS volume types. See here, what are the three types of volumes available? Solid state drive, HDD, and a previous generation. If you see the solid state drive, GP2, GP3, IO1, IO2, and then hard disk volumes, SC1, ST1. What is the difference? What are the major differences? See here, durability for GP2 and GP3, durability is the same. For IOPS, durability 99.999%. Not only that, the major difference is GP2 and GP3 can offer minimum 1 GB storage space and maximum 16 terabytes only. Whereas the IO1 offers you from 4 GB to 16 terabytes and IO2 4 GB to 64 terabytes. And maximum IOPS in the GP2 and GP3 you can get 16,000 only. Whereas in the IO1 you can get 64,000 IOPS. In the IO2 you can get 256,000 IOPS. If your requirement is to get let us say 125,000 IOPS for your storage volume, then the only option is IO2. All these things we will observe, at the time of creating the volumes. We will create each and every volume type. We will create each and every volume type and we will observe. Okay. Let's do the hands-on so that you will get more clarity on that. So what is my goal is, instead of blindly doing the practicals, I would like to create first three EC2 instances. I would like to create three EC2 instances. I will name them as server 1A, this is going to be server 3A, and I will create one more, server 2B. Whenever you create the EC2 instance, important thing is you must choose the region and availability zone, right? Okay, here this I will create in the 1B availability zone, and these two I will create in 1A availability zone. The reason is, at the time of creating the EBS volumes, you have to choose the availability zone, and the volumes can be attached to the instances which are in the same availability zone, which means you cannot attach the volume to an EC2 instance which is in a different availability zone. So what I'm going to do is, now total we have seven volume types, right? Let us create all seven. This is GP2. Let us create 1 GB. GP3, I will create a 2 GB. And this I will create IO1 with a 4 GB. IO2, and this I will create a 6 GB. This I will create in 1A availability zone, and this I will create in 1B. And then here I will create SC1 with 125 GB. this EST1 with a 130 GB in 1A. And finally, magnetic, which is also known as a standard. This I will create with a 3 GB in 1C. Okay, so total we will create all 7 types of EBS volumes, which means whatever the volumes we created in the 1A can be attached to the instances in 1. You can't attach 1 GB volume and 2 GB volumes as shown in this image to the server 2 because the server 2 is created in 1B availability zone. Let us do it practically so you can understand it. You can understand that in a proper way. And one more thing, you cannot attach a EBS volume to multiple instances at a time. You cannot attach. Attach is like connection. You cannot connect a single volume to multiple instances at a time. Let us make it simple. Let us say you have a pen drive. We have a pen drive. You are having 2 laptops. Can you connect the pen drive to 2 different laptops at a time? Can you connect your pen drive to 2 different laptops at a time? You can't. You cannot, right? First, you can connect to your laptop, then you can unplug it, and you can connect to the your friend's laptop. The same way the EBS volumes works. You cannot connect the EBS volume to multiple instances at a time, which is also known as multi-attach, which is also known as multi-attach. Okay, let us write down those points also. EBS volumes can be attached to the instances which are in the same availability zone, and EBS volumes cannot be attached to multiple instances at a time. Instead, volume can be detached from instance 1 and attached to the instance 2. Okay, right. So now, first, what is the use case of the general purpose SSD? Let us go to the documentation page, GP2, and use case is common for both GP2 and GP3. Both for GP2 and GP3, you can see on the screen. The use case is the same. You can use it for virtual desktops, medium size or small size or databases, the applications which requires a low latency and all. Then why there are two? If the use case is same, durability is also same, then why there is a 2 types of EBS volumes that we will observe at the time of creation. That we will observe at the time of creation. Okay, what we do? Create a 1 GB EBS volume using GP2 type in 1A availability zone. In 1A availability zone. Before that, what I do is I will create a 3 Windows servers as shown in this image. To do the practical, we need 3 servers: server 1A, server 2B, and server 3A. Okay, right. So here I will write down create a 3 EC2 instances, server 1A, server 2B, and server 3A in 1A, 1B, and 1A availability zones respective. Okay, right. Let us create this quick. Then we can move on with the EBS part. So log into our Amazon account, go to the EC2. I would like to create this time, I would like to create in a different region, Northern Virginia region, which is Amazon's first region in which all additional new features will be introduced first. Just give me a second. Let me switch to the Northern Virginia region because in Hyderabad was a recent region, right? So you might not get IO2 type of a volume. If I use a Northern Virginia region, you will get all features. Sorry for that. Server 1A, browse more AMIs. Let me click on select, instance type, t2.micro. Key pair. We don't have any key pair. Northern Virginia, we have. Why? Okay, Northern Virginia. Okay, yesterday we created the Linux machine in the Northern Virginia region. Okay, in Virginia. So network settings, subnet. Let me go to 1A here. Availability zone, US East 1A. Then security group. And here we don't have a security group which allows RTP traffic, right? That's why I will select create security group, Windows RDP, just a name, description, RDP traffic from anywhere, 30 GB, yep, launch instance. The same way, I will create two more instances, server 2B and server 3. Just give me 2 minutes. Let me create them quickly. Okay, so total I created three servers, server 1A, server 2B, and server 3A. We are going to use these three for EBS practicals. Okay, right. So now what is our first requirement? Let us create a 1 GB EBS volume using GP2 type in. Let me write down full name, US East 1A availability zone. Okay, right. So how to create? The EBS is also a part of EC2 service. EBS is also a part of EBS. So first navigate to EC2 service, open the EC2 service. Then on the left side, if you scroll down under Elastic Block Store, you can see one option called volumes. Let me click on the volumes and you can see there are three volumes already exist. What are those three volumes? These are the three root volumes for the three EC2 instances. See here, what is the state of the volume? In use. In use means they were attached to the instances. To what instances? Server 1A, server 2B, and server 3A. Okay, right now let me click on create volume. Volume type, general purpose SSD, and we are creating GP2. What is the minimum size and what is the maximum size? Minimum size is a 1 GB, maximum size is 16 terabytes. Maximum size is 16 terabytes. And how many IOPS you will get? Minimum 3000 and sorry, minimum 300 and maximum 3000. But that's not true. For every 100 IOP, sorry, what we call it, for every one IOP, sorry, for every 1 GB, you will get a 3 IOPS. For every 1 GB, you will get 3 IOPS. For 100 GB, we are getting 300 IOPS. But if I choose a 1, you will get a minimum of 100 IOPS. So if I say 1000, then I will get 3000. If I say 2000 GB, I will get 6000 IOPS. So you cannot customize. You cannot customize how many IOPS you need. The performance will be depends on the size of the hard disk. For every 1 GB, for every 1 GB, you will get 3 IOPS, 3 IOPS with a minimum of 100 IOPS. See here, if I say 1 GB, 1 multiplied with 3 is 3 IOPS, but minimum you will get 100 IOPS. Throughput not applicable, means there is no guaranteed throughput, but you will get up to 250 MB per second. You will get up to 250 MB per second. Okay, durability of GP2 is 99.8 to 99.9%. Minimum size is 1 GB, maximum size 16 terabyte. You cannot customize the IOPS. IOPS will be assigned based on a ratio. What is the ratio? 1 is to 3. For every 1 GB of a storage, you will get a 3 IOPS with a minimum of 100 IOPS. Maximum IOPS. How to check the maximum IOPS? If I say maximum storage 16,384, how many IOPS you are getting? 16,000. Okay, 5,333, 5,444, 16,000. If I go with 6,000, same 16,000, you can't get more because the maximum is 16,000 IOPS in the GP2. Okay, then what is the else? Yes, it is a free tier eligible up to 30 GB. Boot or root volume or boot volume, both are same. And the GP2 can be used as a boot volume. GP2 you can use as a C drive for your EC2 instances. Okay, let me create with 1 GB. Availability zone 1A. Tags. Let me use a tag name, name of the volume 1 GB dash GP2 dash 1A. What is the use of a tag's identification purpose? Based on this tag, I can identify, okay, this is a 1 GB volume with a GP2 type in 1A availability zone. Click on create volume. Yes, done. See here name. Now, let us create the second volume. Create a 2 GB EBS volume using GP3 type in US 1A, the second one. Okay, I will follow the same diagram. US East 1A availability zone. So here also minimum size, maximum size, they are common, but we will update while we create the volume. Click on create volume, GP3, 2 GB. See here, IOPS, you can customize. IOPS can be customized. Minimum IOPS you will get 3,000, maximum you will get 16,000. But here for 2 GB size, you will get 3,000 IOPS. Means whenever you have a requirement of smaller storage size with a higher IOPS, you have to go with GP3. In the GP2, with the same 2 GB, you will get 100 IOPS only. But here you are getting more than 100. You are getting more than 100. So IOPS can be customized, and I can say ratio. On what ratio you can? With a 2 GB, can I say 10,000 IOPS? No, there is a rule. What is the rule? You can get up to 1 is to 500. For every 1 GB, you can get up to 500 IOPS with a minimum of a 3,000. I can say up to 1 is to 500, minimum of 3,000 IOPS. No one will ask you about these values and all. Okay. No one will ask you in the interviews. Just you need to understand. Okay, GP2, I cannot customize the IOPS. IOPS will be assigned based on the size. Whereas in the GP3, you can get more IOPS with a lesser size. That's how you should remember. That's how you should remember. Okay, so here max IOPS is the same. There is no change. Throughput 125 MB per second. Baseline means with a minimum of 125 MB per second minimum. Maximum 1,000. You can get some throughput also. On what basis? Can I say 1,000 here? No, no. There is a ratio 1 is to 4. There is a ratio called 1 is to 4. I don't want to create some confusion. So let us go with the default values. Okay, let me write down here. IOPS ratio is up to 1 is to 500 GB per IOPS, minimum of 3,000 IOPS, and a throughput 250 MB, sorry, I think 125 MB per second, minimum. Yeah, minimum 125 MB. And what is the ratio is 1 is to 4. For every 4 IOPS, you can get sorry, for every 4 IOPS, you will get 1 MB throughput. So here we are having 3000 IOPS, right? We are having 3000 IOPS. 3000 divided by 4, what is the value? Those many IOPS you can get minimum. Okay, then availability zone 1A tag. Let me use a tag 2GB-GP3-1A, create volume. Then what is the next one? Provisioned IOPS. Provisioned IOPS SSD. So create an EBS volume using IO1 type in US East 1B availability zone. And the size is going to be 4 GB. Let's create quickly. Create volume IO1. Minimum is a 4 and maximum is 16 GB. IOPS minimum 100. Then what is the maximum? To know the maximum value, enter the maximum size of the thing, and you can see up to 64,000 IOPS. For IO1, you will get 64,000 IOPS, whereas in the GP2 and GP3, the maximum is 16,000. If your requirement is more than 16,000, then it is recommended to go for IO1 type. 4 GB, 100, and this I will go with 1B. And this supports multi-attach feature, means this volume can be attached to multiple instances at a time, but no one will use it because the conditions are you can use only with the Linux instances, and the Linux instances must be built on nitro systems, not the regular virtualization. So in the real time, no one will use that multi-attach feature, but for an interview purpose or for a certification point of view, you should remember IO1 type of EBS volume supports multi-attach feature, which means you can attach the IO1 volume to multiple EC2 instances at a time. Let me add a tag 4GB-IO1-1B, create volume. Then I will create the IO2 type also. I will note down all these specifications. Before uploading the notes, I will update specifications and I will provide it to you. Create an EBS volume of IO2 type, and the size, what is the 6 GB. In US East 1C availability zone. Create volume IO2 6 GB. See here, up to 1000 IOPS per GB means you will get more IOPS. Okay, let me enter size 65,536, 64 terabytes you can create. What is the max IOPS? 256,000 IOPS. So if you need more than 64,000 IOPS, then you should go for IO2 type. And this is going to be in the 1C. 1C, add tag name 6GB-IO2-1C. And remember, IO1 and IO2 are not free tier eligible. IO1 and IO2 are not a free tier eligible. GP2, GP3, free tier eligible. If you create IO1 with 1 GB also, you will be charged for that 1 GB. Okay, right. So then the next one, create 125 GB EBS volume using SC1 type in 1B. Then let us create 130 GB EBS volume using ST1 type in US East 1A. Then finally create 3 GB EBS volume using standard type in US East 1C. Standard means the magnetic, the previous generation type. Let us create all these quickly, the last three. So create volume, yes, C1. Minimum is 125. That's why I have chosen 125. No IOPS. Throughput is just 2 MB per second. In which availability zone we are planning? 1B. Select 1B. Let me add a tag 125 GB dash SC1 dash 1B. Create volume. Then again click on create volume. This time ST1 130 GB because it's also minimum is 125, maximum is 16 TB. Here throughput will get somewhat little higher throughput than the previous SC1 cold HDD. This is going to be in 1A availability zone. Create volume. Final volume, magnetic, 3 GB, no IOPS, no throughput. That doesn't mean you don't get any. You will get some minimum IOPS and minimum throughput. 1C, tag, let me use a tag called name, 3 GB dash STD standard dash 1C. Okay, so what happened here? Now we created these many volumes and three EC2 instances, right? So now what we do is let us attach the 1 GB volume to the server 1A, which is in 1A availability zone. While attaching this to the server 1, we'll try attaching the 1 GB volume to server 2, which is in a different availability zone, which is not possible. Actually, which is not possible. That also we will observe at the time of creation. Okay. So if you observe here, we created multiple EBS volumes, right? What are the different states you can observe here? Volume state, in use, available. What is the difference between these two? If you see the volume state as in use, which means the volume is healthy and it is attached to some EC2 instance. If you see the state as available, volume is healthy, the volume is available, but it is not yet attached to any EC2 instance. That is the meaning of in use and available. If you want to check, see here, for the first volume is showing the state as a in use, which is attached to server 3A. The second volume state is available, which is not attached to any EC2 instance. Okay, now what we do is attach the 1 GB EBS volume to the server 1A EC2 instance and observe it cannot be attached to the server 2B instance. Why? In a different availability zone. We must know that, right? We must know practically. Theory, you can read anywhere, but you can't remember that. If you do that practically, if you observe that practically, you can remember that forever. Let's do that. Okay, how to attach? Attach means like this. I'm going to connect it so that this 1 GB is going to be the D drive. But in the server 1A, already there is a 30 GB volume, which is a C drive. And now this is going to be 1 GB volume D drive. Okay, right. So now here, how to do that? Go to the EC2, click on volumes, click on volumes, select the volume which you would like to attach, select the checkbox, actions. There is an option called attach volume. Click on the attach volume. Now instance, right? Here you can see the list of instances, but how many instances it is showing? How many instances it is showing? Just two, server 1 and server 3. Why? Why? Because in 1A availability zone, only these two instances are available. Server 2 is in a different availability zone to which you cannot attach this volume. That is the meaning. Okay, now let me select server 1A, then device name. See here, it shows some device names. Randomly, you have to choose one. Whenever you see the name as a dev SDA1, that is a root volume. XVDP, C, D, E, F, G. You can choose any available one, that doesn't matter. Attach volume and done. Here there is a refresh button. Let me click on refresh button. And this is the volume, right? 1 GB GP2 1A, 1 GB size with 100 IOPS. Now, what I do is, let me scroll aside. What is the volume state? In use. To which volume it is attached? Server 1A. Server 1A. Now, what we do is log into server 1A and observe the 1 GB volume as a D drive. But it is not available by default. The reason is there are few things. There are few things. One is by default, all new hardware is in offline mode. It will be connected, but it is not online. It is offline. We have to make it online. Then the new volume doesn't have any file system. We must create a partition along with the file system. File system means like NTFS for Windows machines, NTFS for Linux machines, ext2, ext3, and all. So without a file system, no data can be stored on the hard disk. Earlier, we used to have a FAT file system, FAT16, FAT32, and so on. NTFS is the recent one. I mean, that is a very old, but that is the most popular one, right? So the hard disk must have a file system. So what all we have to do, whenever you log into server 1A, you can't see all the detail, you can't see the 1 GB drive. You must make that 1 GB drive as an online, and then you need to create a 1 GB partition. Like you do a formatting, right? What is the formatting means? Formatting is not like a kind of deleting. What it will do is it will recreate the file system. So whenever the existing file system got deleted, automatically we will lose all the data. I will show you that practically. Let me log into server 1. For that, we need the username and password. Username is administrator. So public IP here. Click on connect. Upload that key pair. Decrypt password. So here is the password. How to log in? We have to open the remote desktop connection. Then enter the public IP 35.172.213.14. Username administrator. Password I already copied it. Click on yes. For the first time, we'll take a few minutes of time to create a profile for the logged in user. So just wait for 2 to 3 minutes of time. Then what we do first, we'll make that 1 GB volume online and we will initialize it. Then we will create a file system. So, okay, still it is getting loaded, right? Then we'll open the file explorer, like my computer. We'll observe only the C drive. D drive is not yet available. Okay, if I go to this PC, you can see there is only one drive called C drive. There is no D drive of 1 GB. Okay, how to do that? For that, you have to go to disk management. We need to open the disk management. How to open? Right click on this PC and there is one option called manage. Then it will open the server manager. There is shortcut also. I will show that shortcut also. Close it. Then here you can see one option called tools. Then click on computer management. So we created with a T2.micro, right? Which means one CPU and 1 GB of RAM. That's why the system will be very, very, very slow. 1 GB of RAM and one CPU. Okay, so the computer management will be opened. And on the left side, under storage, you can see one option called disk management. So here you have to do. You can see offline. Okay, the easiest way to open the disk management is in the EC2 instance, click on Start, type Run, open the Run prompt, in which you have to type disk, mgmt.msc, means disk management Microsoft console. Disk mgmt.msc. Directly it opens the disk management. Maximize it. Okay, it is offline, so I need to make it online. How? Right click on the disk one, click on online, but not yet initialized, means not yet started. Right click, initialize disk. Okay, now the disk one is online. But here the 1 GB space is unallocated space. You can see the black color one, right? Means the hard disk, the storage space doesn't have any file system. So right click on the unallocated space, new simple volume, next, next, assign the following drive letter D, next, next, finish. That's it, simple. Okay, let me close it. And now if you open this PC, you can see the D drive of 1 GB. Now what I do, I will create some files. New text file, file 1. I will open it. This file created from server 1A. I mean, the hard disk is attached to server 1 and we created that file. Let me copy paste. Total how many files? 8, 9, 10. Total 10 files. Now what I do is we have to check. We have to check a different thing. Let me close it. Now my goal is detach it like this and connect it to the server 3 and observe all the 10 files are accessible from server 3A also. Like assume the pen drive. If you disconnect the pen drive from your laptop and connect to a different laptop, all files exist, right? The same way we will verify now. Is it possible on AWS or not? Detach the 1 GB volume from server 1A and attach it to the server 3A and observe all 10 files exist. So here also we have to make the volume online. Why we have to make the volume online again? This volume is new to the server 3. It might be old to server 1. First time you are connecting to server 3. So you have to make the volume online. But no need to create the file system because already the file system exists on the 1 GB drive, right? Then let us do that. How to do that? Without detaching, you cannot attach it. First, we will verify that. Let me go to the volumes under Elastic Block Store. This is the one. Select the volume, actions. You can't attach it because it is already attached. What we have to do first, we need to detach it. Wait for like up to 1 minute of time. This is the one. Let me check the state. Still in use. 1 GB one. Yeah, now it is available. Means it is detached from server 1A. Let me attach it to server 3A. Attach volume. Volume got attached to server 3. Now what I do, I will log into server 3. Let me get the password. Even though we use the same private key, the password is different for each and every instance because password is not generated because of the key pair. The password will be encrypted and stored with the help of the key pair. Okay, let me open the remote desktop connection. Public IP 54.227.170.226. Username administrator. Password. Click on yes. Which will take a 2 minutes of time because for the first time we are logging in. So it takes some time to create the profile and all. Okay, so if I open the file explorer, I mean my computer, you can't see the 1 GB drive. Okay, now what I do, I will open the run, I mean disk management. Okay, still the system is getting loaded. That's why it's too slow. Just wait for like 1 more minute. Yeah, it's done. Click on start. Let me type run disk mg.msc. See here offline. Right click on the disk one online. That's it. Don't right click and create file system. You will lose all the data. Already it has a NTFS file system which is healthy. See here. You can see all 10 files which already exist. Just you disconnect and connect it to another instance. This is how you can create EBS volumes and you can attach it to the EC2 instances. Still, we have few topics left for the EBS volume, which is like disk management. So we have 1 GB volume, right? What if I need to increase that 1 GB to 2 GB without losing the data? Or there's a GP2 type, right? Because in the real time, if the performance is not good, we might want to change the volume type from GP2 to GP3, IO1 to IO2, or whatever, right? This volume management we will cover in the next video. Okay, right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section. Thank you, everyone.